The ghostly car, a haunting encounter on the open road. The wind howled through the barren trees that lined the deserted highway, their skeletal branches clawing at the ink-black sky. James tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his eyes flicking between the dim glow of his dashboard and the winding road ahead. The gas station attendant's warning echoed in his mind. Stay off Route 609 after midnight. Strange things happen out there. He had laughed it off at the time, dismissing it as small-town superstition. Now, with the stroke of midnight fast approaching and nothing but darkness surrounding him, the words carried a new weight. The road stretched endlessly, swallowed by the gloom, and every mile seemed to pull him deeper into an eerie silence. The hum of his engine was the only sound, a fragile lifeline between him and the unknown. A flicker of movement in his rearview mirror made his heart pound. He glanced up, expecting to see nothing but the empty road behind him. Instead, twin headlights gleamed ominously in the distance, approaching fast. James furrowed his brow. He hadn't seen another car for nearly an hour. Where had this one come from? The vehicle, a sleek black sedan, closed the distance with unnatural speed. Within seconds it was tailing him so closely he could make out the outline of the driver, though something was off. The figure behind the wheel was eerily still, their face obscured by shadows. The high beams flashed once, twice, blinding him momentarily. James swallowed hard, pressing his foot on the gas, but no matter how fast he drove, the car stayed right on his bumper. His pulse hammered in his ears. He swerved onto an exit ramp, hoping to shake the mysterious pursuer. The road twisted through a dense forest, the gnarled trees looming overhead like silent sentinels. He exhaled in relief as the headlights vanished behind him, but as soon as he rounded the next bend, the car was there again, this time ahead of him. James slammed the brakes, his tires screeching against the asphalt. The sedan sat motionless in the middle of the road, its engine silent, its headlights dark. A suffocating dread settled over him as he stared at the vehicle. It looked old, too old. The paint was chipped, the metal rusted in places. And then he saw it, the license plate. It was covered in grime, but beneath the dirt, the numbers and letters told an impossible story. He knew that plate. 6 years ago, on this very stretch of road, he had been involved in a tragic accident. A reckless swerve, a moment of distraction, and a black sedan had plunged off the bridge, lost to the icy waters below. The driver had never been found. The guilt had haunted him ever since, a weight he carried in silence. And now the car, that car, was here. The door creaked open and a figure stepped out. The driver was impossibly thin, dressed in the tattered remnants of what had once been a suit. James's breath caught in his throat as the figure raised its head, revealing a gaunt, waterlogged face. Hollow eyes locked onto his, dark and empty, voids of suffering and accusation. "You left me," the figure whispered, though the voice echoed as if carried by the wind. "You never came back." James' body went rigid. He wanted to run, to turn his car around and flee, but he was frozen in place. The ghostly figure took a step forward, then another. The air grew colder, thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. James gasped as the apparition reached out, its fingers brushing his shoulder. An unbearable chill seeped into his skin, his very soul turning to ice. Suddenly, the sound of a horn shattered the silence. James blinked, and the road was empty again. The car, the figure, gone. Only the faint scent of mildew and something rotten remained. His own car's headlights illuminated the cracked pavement, revealing no sign that anyone had ever been there. His hands trembled as he gripped the wheel, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. Was it a hallucination, a trick of exhaustion, or something far more sinister? Shaking, he started the engine and turned around, retracing his route. He would take the long way home, anything to avoid Route 609. but as he merged back onto the highway, his rearview mirror flickered again. The black sedan was there, following him, its headlights cutting through the dark. Second story, the ghostly car, a haunting encounter on the open road. The highway stretched endlessly before him, an unbroken ribbon of asphalt swallowed by the darkness of the countryside. The only sound was the rhythmic hum of the tires against the road, a constant reminder of the miles still ahead. Daniel gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles pale under the dim glow of the dashboard. He hadn't wanted to take this route. Route 609. It had a reputation, whispered among truckers and late-night travelers. Some called it cursed, others simply refused to drive it at night. But Daniel was in a hurry, and cutting through the old highway shaved nearly an hour off his drive. The gas station clerk had given him a strange look when he mentioned his route. An old man, his voice was rough with age and cigarettes. "You should stick to the main roads, son. Folks round here know better than to drive Route 609 at night." Daniel had laughed it off. Superstition, that's all it was. But now, as he drove deeper into the rural expanse, an uneasy feeling settled over him. The road was eerily empty, no headlights in either direction, no street lights, just an abyss of black stretching out beyond his windshield. The uneasy silence was shattered by the crackle of static from his radio. Daniel frowned, glancing at the screen. He hadn't touched the dial, yet the station flickered and changed on its own. The speakers hissed with garbled voices, whispers blending together in a sound that sent a chill up his spine. He reached out to switch it off, but before his fingers could touch the button, the sound abruptly cut out. The road plunged into an even deeper silence. A flicker in the rearview mirror made his pulse spike. Twin headlights had appeared behind him, far back, but bright. Daniel exhaled, forcing a chuckle. Just another traveler, maybe another driver taking a shortcut through this old road. But something was off. The car was gaining too fast. Within seconds, the headlights were right on his bumper, burning into his mirrors. Daniel squinted, trying to make out the make and model, but the glare was too intense. His pulse quickened as the vehicle swerved left, then right, but never past him, just tailgated him aggressively, its high beams flashing once, twice. His hands tightened on the wheel. "What the hell is your problem?" he muttered under his breath. He pressed the gas, inching past 80 miles per hour, but the car followed effortlessly, gliding forward like a predator toying with its prey. His breath came in quick bursts, heart hammering. He slammed his hand on the horn, hoping to startle the driver, but as soon as he did, the headlights vanished. Daniel blinked. The road behind him was empty. No sign of red tail lights, no engine noise. It was as if the car had never been there. A cold sweat formed on his brow. Did he imagine it? His thoughts were interrupted by movement ahead. His heart lurched. The car was there, not behind him, in front of him. It sat motionless in the middle of the road, a sleek black sedan, its surface glistening under the moonlight. But there was something wrong. The car looked aged, older than it should be. The paint was chipped, the chrome dulled with time. The tires were covered in filth, like it had been dragged from the depths of the earth. His foot hovered over the brake, his brain screaming at him to stop, to turn around, but something inside him refused. A sickening curiosity rooted him to the seat. The driver's side door swung open. A figure stepped out, tall, unnaturally thin. The tattered remains of what might have once been a suit clung to its skeletal frame, fabric rotted and wet. Its head remained tilted downward, but Daniel could see the water dripping from its sleeves, soaking the cracked pavement below. A gurgling sound filled the air, a low, unnatural wheeze, like something struggling to breathe through waterlogged lungs. Daniel's breath caught. The figure lifted its head. Its face was pale, sunken, skin stretched too tight over sharp cheekbones, eyes dark and hollow. Its lips parted, and a strangled whisper escaped. You left me. Daniel's mind reeled. He knew that voice. No, he knew that face. 6 years ago, a night not unlike this one. He had been reckless, young, impatient, a wet road, an argument, and a car skidding out of control. His own hands on the wheel, the weight of another body in the passenger seat. A crash, the sharp snap of metal and the violent splash as the vehicle plunged into the river below. He had made it to shore. His friend had not. Daniel's mouth went dry. "No," he whispered. "That's not possible." The figure took another step forward. Water pooled beneath its feet, the stench of rot thick in the air. "You didn't come back for me." Daniel's vision blurred as panic surged through him. The road around him twisted, the air growing thick and suffocating. His pulse thundered in his ears. He scrambled for the gear shift, hands shaking violently. He had to get away. But as he looked up, the figure was gone. The road ahead stretched empty once more. Daniel let out a ragged breath, his body trembling uncontrollably. He pressed the gas pedal, heart racing, desperate to leave that cursed place behind. The car sped forward, the trees blurring past. His breaths came in short gasps as his fingers gripped the wheel so tightly they ached. Minutes passed, maybe hours. He didn't know. All he cared about was distance. The town lights finally appeared in the distance, and a weak laugh of relief escaped him. He had made it. He was safe. But as he merged onto the main highway, his blood ran cold. In the rearview mirror, a flicker. Twin headlights. The black sedan was back. Daniel's stomach dropped. The car kept pace with him effortlessly, its presence undeniable. He didn't dare look directly at it, but out of the corner of his eye he saw it, silent, waiting. And then his radio crackled back to life. A gurgling, drowning voice whispered through the static. "You never came back." Daniel's scream was lost in the roar of the wind as the ghostly car followed him into the endless night.